In this screencast, I will demonstrate how to pattern along a path to make retro-style curves in Inkscape 0.46. I vaguely remember a viewer asking how these stripes or curves were made many months ago. I'm not exactly sure what I told him then. I kind of had an interest in making something like this recently, so I thought I would turn it into a tutorial topic. I did find that patterning things along a path can be a little intense for Inkscape depending on what one is doing and how many curves one is making. I realized that I should stick to the basics in this screencast by keeping my project simple and then letting the viewer make something more complex after they have learned the fundamentals. So let's begin the tutorial. Okay, retro style curves. The first thing I want to do is set up my document, and I'm going to go to File, Document Properties, and I've got my page set for 800 by 600. We're just going to do a small graphic, and I also have my border on top of drawing. That'll come in handy in the end, so I just want to make sure that I have it set now. Alright, now what I'm going to do is set up some guides. And in Inkscape 0.47 we have a handy little feature that puts guides around your canvas border automatically. But we're going to go ahead and budget here. I'll use the same method I've always used in the past. I'll make this 800 by 600. And I'm going to go to my Align and Distribute, and I'm going to center that up on my page. And I'm going to go to Object, Object to Guides. Okay, that puts guides around my border. Now what I'm going to do is slide a guide down in the middle so I have some crosshairs. I'm going to make this 400 wide, and this one should be 300. Okay, that'll just help me get started. Alright, now what I want to do is I want to draw like an L-shaped path, and I want to put a fillet or a radius on there. So what I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to do, I guess, let me just bring in my palette, my color palette. I've gone ahead and made this ahead of time. You can use whatever colors you want. I kind of made these colors myself based on some artwork that I made before. These are kind of retro-ish colors. So I'll just move these over here. And I'm going to go ahead and ungroup this for now. And basically, if I were to select on one of these squares, I have it drawn in at 50 by 50 pixels. And I'm going to use 5 of these 50 by 50 squares to pattern. Okay, now there is a trick to get your curve just the way you want it, and let me carry on and I'll show you my little equation or trick here. Okay, so I need to get a fillet in here, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my control key down and draw a circle, and I'm going to go ahead and give this thing a stroke. I'll make this 1, and I'll go ahead and turn off the fill. Okay, and I'm going to select this, I'm going to turn on my lock, and I'm going to make this 250 pixels in diameter. Okay, the reason that I'm making it 250 pixels is because each one of these adds up to 250. Okay, so I want my circle diameter to equal the size of my little squares here. Okay. So now that I got this, I'm going to go ahead and just shove this over, and it'll snap to my my grids here. And in order to get a fillet, what I'm going to do is double click on this, and first let me check my document properties. Whoops, not my document properties, my preferences. I get this thing a little smaller here, and I want to check out my steps. Okay, I'm 10 degrees. That's fine. Okay, now what I'm going to do is double click on this, and I'm going to left click and hold this down and just drill it back, and I'm going to hold my control key down so it snaps right here. I'm going to do the same down here, and I'm going to push up just a little bit to get these lines to disappear, and I have a nice fillet. Okay, so now what I can do is highlight this, go to Object, or actually go to Path, Object to Path, go to our node tool, then we go to our Bezier tool. I'm going to select on that end snap, hit enter. I'll select on this end snap and snap that there. Okay. Now I'm going to turn off my guides, and you see that I have a nice filleted path with proper tangents here. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do next, this is going to become my actually the object that I'm going to pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and take this palette here. I'm going to select it all, and I'm going to group it. And I'm going to make that just 2 pixels wide. Okay, and it's hard to see, but I'll show you what I'm going to do in the end here. Now, it's important that this be on top of this in the Z order. Okay, and I'll show you why. Let me select this. I'll select this. We'll go to Effects, Generate from Path, Pattern Along Path here. And I'm going to go Repeated Stretched. Okay. Now, I'm going to take all the default settings. And again, this should give me the wrong type of pattern. But I just want to show you what happens when this is below your path. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Apply. You get something like this. Okay, and that's not what we want at all. We don't want to pattern this path on this. We want to pattern these colors on this path. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and undo that, and I'm going to highlight this and make sure it's to the top. Then I'm going to select this path, and then we hit Apply. Okay, and that gives me exactly what I want. Okay, now this whole thing is one object. If we ungroup, we'll get individual stripes down here that we can select. Okay. Now, it was important for me to get a nice sharp corner here. If I made my fillet on my path too small, what we would get here is we would get a breakthrough or a bleed in this corner. And I wanted to make sure that I had a nice 90-degree angle here. If I make the radius larger, of course, then I would have a inside radius here. Maybe that's an effect that you guys want, but it's not an effect that I wanted on this screencast. Okay, so we'll carry on. Okay, now what I'm going to do is turn my guides back on, and I think I can do that by holding my control key down and just picking into this ruler area. And I'm going to grab my Bezier tool, and I'm going to pick right here, and I'm going to drill it into here about right there. We don't need to go all the way. You can, that's fine, but just need to go part of the way. And again, we're going to turn our guides off, and again, I got to make sure that this is on top of this path that I've just drawn. So I'm going to go ahead and send that to the top. We're going to select this path here. We're going to go to Generate from Path, Pattern Along Path, Repeated Stretched, Snake. We take all the defaults. I'm keeping my path, by the way. That's why this one is checked. So we hit Apply. Okay. And this is the brunt of our tutorial. Okay, I'm going to take this now and make sure I get this on top. Okay, this is really the main part of the tutorial. And I've seen lots of tutorials online, Photoshop, Illustrator, and I've never liked really how people have done these inside curves in here. They must be equal to me in order to look right. When they're not, visually it just looks very ugly. So it's nice taking these objects here and make sure they're together, and go ahead and taking that and patterning along a path. If I make this, I'm going to go back to 50 on this. And for some of you that are having problems snapping these things together, let me show you what we do here. If these things were all over the place, I think a lot of you probably know how to do this by now, especially if you've watched our Richard and I are in mine screencast for a while, but if you don't know, what we do is we select this object first, this object second. We go to our line tool. We go to last selected. I'm going to align that to the centers, and then I'm going to push them together. Okay, and I do that with this button here. Again, I select this one, then this one, center, push them together. This here, center, push them together, and this here, finally, center, and we'll push them together. Okay. Now, obviously, if you have gaps in between here, maybe that's an effect that you guys want. You can center out those gaps, and as long as you have that a group, you can go ahead and pattern that along a path, and you'd have some white spaces in there. So that's how you do that portion anyways. I kind of skipped that in the beginning, but I think you guys figured that out. Okay, so I've got this part here. Let me zoom out just a little bit. That's my main part of my retro stripes. The next thing I'm going to do is, before I carry on, this outside radius happens to be 500 pixels. So what I'm going to do is draw a circle that's 500 pixels in diameter, and we'll give this about a 3 maybe. And again, I'm going to hold my control key, I'm going to roll that back, roll it up until I get a fillet. Okay, and that should fit right in here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select these two things. Go to our align and distribute. Okay, we need to go to the bottoms, and we need to snap to the very end here. Now what I'm going to do is zoom in on this, and I'm going to make sure that my stroke is capped, nice and rounded. Okay. And next, I'm going to make this about a, actually, I think I'm going to, that's 3. Let's see what 4 gives us. And I'm going to give this about a 2. Actually, I want to make sure that that's nice and black. Okay. And I'm going to make this about, we'll leave it 100, and let me drop it down just to see where we are. Okay, and I'm just trying to get just a little bit of a shadow there. Let me undo that. Okay, I'm going to select this. I'm going to go to Path, Stroke to Path. I'm going to zoom in on this, and I'm going to clean up this little area here. Select these and just kind of drill it down just a little bit. It's going to get hidden in my last step, but I just want to make sure it's a little bit better than what it is. Okay, I'm going to push this up just a little bit. Oop. Make sure I only select one here. Okay, it's kind of hard to see. Okay, let me go back out. And let me drop that down a step. Okay, and I think that looks probably pretty good. Okay, I just want to simulate just a little bit of shadowing right there. So it looks like this is on top of this here. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, let me zoom out a little bit here. Now the next thing that I want to do is I need to draw, I want to put a raster image on top of this, kind of grunge it up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a square here, or rectangle. Let me let me remove the stroke and add a fill. I'm going to add a black fill. I'm going to make this 250 wide. I'm going to center that up on my page. And let's go ahead and turn our guides on and just push that down. There we go. And what I'm going to do is come down here and we'll make that 250 high. Slap that there. Okay, now what I want to do is take this, and we'll push that to the top, and we'll take this now, slide it down here. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way, basically what I wanted to do was take these two objects here and do a union on that. So I had this thing here. I could have taken this whole thing and done a union on that after I broke it apart a little bit, but it's a little bit more resource heavy. So since I'm just dealing with rectangular shapes, you know, drawing that little mask right there is just fine. So let's put that back. We'll center that up on our page and push it to the top. Okay, now what I'm going to do is turn my guides back off, and I'm going to make some text. We'll write out retro, but I got to use the text tool, not my connector tool. Okay, and I've got some retro text. That looks pretty good. And I'm just going to stretch this out just a little bit. Okay, that looks probably pretty good. We'll center that up. And we'll just take a look at it up and down here, make sure that it's okay. I think we need to come down just a little bit. Alright, we'll zoom back out again. Okay, zoom way out this time. Now what I'm going to do is bring in my grunge texture. This is just a texture that I got off of cgtextures.com. And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to duplicate it for now. And I'm just going to push this in the middle somewhere. Doesn't matter where I put it. And I'm going to take both of these things and combine them. Then I'm going to select my background. We go to Object, Clip, Set. Okay. I no longer need this. Okay, and this is going to give me a nice, a little grungy pattern on top there. Okay. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make this text green. Okay. And let's see here. What I need to do is set up some layers. So I'm going to go to View. Actually, I'm going to go to my Layer toolbar. Okay, and I'm going to make a new one called, let's just call it Clip. And it's going to be above this layer. And I'm going to make sure that this is on my clip layer. So I'm going to hold Shift, page up to move it. And I want to select Multiply for now. And we might have to change our transparency. Okay, now I'm going to take this and center that up on my page. Okay, I think we're getting close. Let's take a look at this. Okay, now if that's basically the effect that I wanted, but if it's a little dark to you, what you can do is go back into your layers. We'll select that clip layer that we use multiply on, and we can roll back that transparency a little bit. If you want something, maybe we should try a 70. A little too dark yet. How about a 60? I think that looks pretty good. Okay, and next, let's see. What I want to do next is make a background. And I thought about making kind of a grungy background, but just to speed this thing along, I'm just going to make a solid background with a radial gradient. So I'm going to go to my layers, and I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to put it below my layer 1, and we'll call it BG for background. Okay, and I am going to draw a rectangle, same size as my page, 800 by 600, and I'm going to go ahead and center that up. And I want to make sure that it's this dark, winey purple color. Okay, and I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to hit Shift R to reverse the gradient. I'm going to select my middle node and then pick this light color here. Okay, and I think that's just about it. Now what I want to do, I want to make this thing stand out just a little bit. Looks like I need to push this over just a nudge. There we go. So what I'm going to do is hit my down arrow a couple times. And by doing that, I kind of get an emboss effect. You can see that it kind of rolls up this edge here, lightens it up, darkens the edge down here, and kind of makes that text stand out. It makes my shape here stand out a little bit. And we do that just by moving that raster image down just a little bit. You can see how it makes your edges, kind of rolls them a little bit. Just kind of brings it off of the background. Okay? Now, if you're happy with that, that's fine. Or what I like to do, I don't like to make my graphics, too angly or too 90 degree or 0 degree. So what I'm going to do is highlight everything, and I'm going to scale up just a little bit. Now I'm going to watch my status bar down here. I'm going to hold Control Shift, and I'm going to scale this up until I get about 110%. I just need to get close. If I wanted something exact, I could use the transform tool. Okay, now, didn't look like I got it there. Let's get this out of the way, and let's get a bigger box here. Let's try it again. Now, I'm still not getting it. Let's back up. Must have my clip. Whoops. There we go. I got my clip down here. All right. Again, I'm going to watch that status bar. Okay, that's close to 110%. Now what I'm going to do is take this. Oh, I didn't get it again there. Let's get it all. There we go. I'll show you what I'm doing here in just a minute. Okay, we'll give it just a little bit of a rotation there. Now I want to zoom in on this. Okay, now we're going to use our we're going to use our, I'm at a loss for words here. We're going to use our canvas border as our clipping plane, okay? Let me zoom back out, and I want to make sure that I've got everything selected. Okay, and I'm going to push this down just a little bit. I'm arrowing down. Okay, and I think I got it there. I want to make sure that I have everything set right here. Okay, it looks like this got adjusted just a little bit. We're going to push him back just a nudge. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out on this. Okay. Now, what I'm trying to do, when I export this, I'm going to go to my File, Export Bitmap. Okay, I'm going to select Page. We'll go to Browse. Let's see here. I'll go to Home, Heathen X. Let's spell this right here. And I'll call this, we'll just call it image.png. And I'll write that out. Okay. Now when I open up that image, zoom this down a little bit so you can see it. And let's take this here and move it out of the way. You can see that my my canvas border acted as my clipping plane. So anything outside of the border here got clipped off. Okay, and that's kind of what I was going for. Okay, I want just a little bit of the text clipped and then moving just at an angle there. And that is my retro curves. Okay, now on your own, there's lots of things that you can do with this. If you were to Google retro curves or retro stripes or whatever, or go to Google Images, you're going to find lots of little examples. And I made some really neat ones that just kind of go all over the place. But again, the more curves you add to your path, the more resource hungry Inkscape gets. So things do get a little slow. I thought I would keep this one simple by just putting one curve in here. I think I got the effect, and you guys can figure out what to do here. But it was kind of a neat little project, and if you're looking for making some type of a retro styling for a banner or for a logo or whatever for websites or for your own type of stuff, this is kind of a neat little project. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Thank you for watching. I'm Heathen X.